Hey guys, this is Mitch with the Department of Bad Ideas, and this is a retrospective on the Eyes of Blight event that we just had. Now, I'm going to go over the things I did right, the things I did wrong, what the successful parts were, what the failures of the event were, and just some kind of overall thoughts I had on the event. So, this is going to be a little bit of a long one, ye be warned, but I really advise you stick around, take a listen, you might like what you hear, you might learn something. Who knows? So, for those of you who are unaware, which I'm pretty sure everyone knows about this event by now, it lasted a whole freaking month. The Eyes of Blight event was, it's an Archwing event, which I don't believe we had an Archwing event yet. If I'm wrong, correct me on that. But what's happening is we have all of our new relays up, and Vahak doesn't like relays. They found them, and he's sending his Fomorian ships after them, which we last encountered in the Slingstone event, in which we were actually sabotaging their, I want to say it was their fusion cores or something like that, or their engine core, something similar like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was like a year and a half ago. But it's been a long time since we've seen these ships. So it's really cool to see them actually in action instead of us just screwing over their engines and whatnot. So that was pretty nice. But what would happen is we would attack these Fomorians that would show up targeting a certain relay. If we take them out, cool, relay is saved. If we don't, relay gets destroyed. And hilariously enough, the one on Earth, Strata, a lot of people were thinking that Digital Extremes was bluffing when they said they destroy the relays, because they haven't done any failure conditions for an event in about a year now. It was only really the first few events that they did where they had an actual fail condition, such as Arid Fear, Slingstone, stuff like that. So it was pretty interesting to see them bring back the failure conditions and actually put some pressure on the community to go, hey, if you don't do this, there will be repercussions for it. Now, I'll start off with the parts that are successful, because right now there's way more things that went wrong than went right, so I feel it's a good idea to start with the strong points of the event. The first one I want to talk about, it did get more people into Archwing. This is a big deal in my opinion, because it's this game type they spent a whole freaking year on just about, or a very large amount of time. And it came out and not really a lot of people jumped all over it, and I can kind of understand why. Playing through Archwing, you can see here the footage in the background, I'm playing Interception. It's really it's not that exciting of a game type just yet, or a game mode, I mean. Interception doesn't seem to have enough enemies. Exterminate's alright. Sabotage is interesting, but right now the problem I'm finding with it is they really need to get more tiles in the tile sets for it, because everything you do is a bit repetitive at the moment. Like, you've seen all the tiles after you've done 2 or 3 runs, and that's not good. Also, this is just something I realized myself from the event. Archwing doesn't have enough enemies. I noticed with the event, one thing they did that was pretty cool that I could tell they were probably experimenting with was when you drop in, there were a ton of enemies everywhere, a lot of small enemies. And it made me realize that Archwing is actually really strong when it comes to fighting lots of little enemies as opposed to a small handful of big ones. That really does seem to be the forte of the game mode. So I think what they should consider doing is kind of take the Star Fox approach with the Archwing and have every map has got a lot of little enemies. You know, say take them down 5 levels from whatever level the map is or something like that. Have a lot of those, and then have a few bigger ones mixed in there, like the Ogbuds and stuff like that, that do take a few rounds to put down. That would, in my opinion, really add some fun to it, because right now Archwing's got a really fun melee system where you kind of slide to each target, kind of like 2 Human. And that really, it makes it really exciting being able to do that, having enough targets that continuously bounce from one to another to another. So, from what I learned from the event with Archwing, getting more players into it and seeing this stuff in action, is that it's definitely a direction they could push Archwing in and would work really well. Second thing that was good for this event, they really consolidated. I'm assuming this was their main reason for doing it, but they had way too many relays when it started, and it consolidated the number of relays we have down to 3 of them. How much of this was intentional, I don't know. I feel like they kind of, they didn't force any failures, but some of them they made more difficult to defend than others, such as Strata was one of them that was pretty hard to defend. Vesper was really hard to defend at the end there. While the more difficult ones had much more time to take down, because obviously they're more difficult, not as many people can play it. But I felt like they actually made some tweaks in there to make it so some of them were gonna probably fail, but I don't think they inadvertently made it guaranteed failure. But we've got it down to 3 of them. We've got one on Mercury, one on Saturn, one on Pluto. So we more or less have you know, our low, mid, and high level relays. So that's pretty good. I don't know how this is going to affect the Void Trader, which we will be seeing on this Friday. I believe he's going to have a primed maglev, if what I read was correct. That's kind of cool. But we'll have to see how that affects him, because that's really up in the air. You don't know what's going to happen with him. But consolidating him down is pretty good. There won't be half a dozen dead relays kicking around. There'll actually be 3 fairly populated relays. Everyone's probably still going to flood to Mercury and then wherever the Void Trader is, but still pretty cool to see that they'll be more populated. So yeah, that's pretty much the pluses I have for the event. If there's anything else I think of, I'll mention it in a minute. Now, unfortunately for the event, there were a lot of failings of this event, which, I mean, it's a learning process. We are still in beta, contrary to what everyone likes to say about Warframe. It's still in beta. We're still testing things. Archwing is very new. The first big one that I want to say is that we really needed some kind of pre-event or something to get people ready to get their Archwings. Because when this event dropped, we didn't really know if it was going to be an Archwing event. I mean, they might have hinted at it here and there, but that's only if you've really paid attention to everything. So one of the issues I found early on, because I noticed a lot of unranked everything players coming in, players weren't really prepared to do Archwing stuff yet. Even though it's been out for a little while, it's, like I said before, it's a game mode that not a lot of people are too excited about yet. So I think what we needed to do was have some kind of pre-event or series of tactical alerts. I believe one of our tactical alerts was Archwing based recently, but we needed to kind of hype up the fact that the Fomorians were coming. They're going to take out our relays, or something like that, and get us in the into the Archwings for rewards that actually mattered. Tactical alerts, not so much, unless you were to put a catalyst at the end of it. That would get players to definitely run the event. It would have gotten, you know, players would have made their Archwings, gone out, got their catalyst, and there you go. We're in good shape. But yeah, like I said, when we started the event, there were just everyone didn't have Archwing stuff. The first few Fomorians we had, all I saw were players that had been playing Archwing. And then once we got about a week into it, everyone was just unranked, because everyone had to rush, do the quest, get their Archwing built, and it takes a little while. So I think that was a kind of something, I don't think they intended for that to happen by any means. It was probably an unexpected side effect of the event, but it is something that I think they should have considered prior. If they do another Archwing event, they should definitely consider that. Do something the week prior to hype it up, get people to get their Archwing stuff ready and all that. And that'll definitely alleviate that major issue. The second major issue, we had no real investment in the relays. I know that sounds a little odd, because everyone's going to immediately say, Void Trader, but that's the only thing. I've seen this one echoed on the forums a few times. We need to have some kind of, each relay needs to have something to it to make us want to give a shit about it. Because as it stands right now, when the event started, we had, I think, 8, 10 relays. We had a lot of relays. But they're all carbon copies of each other. The only difference was one of them was getting the Void Trader in a few days and the rest weren't. So that's why Saturn was defended so hard, because that was where the Void Trader went. So what I feel like we need to do, or what this needs to happen, is we need to get something unique to each relay. Whether it's Darvo has unique gear in each relay, or I don't know, something Syndicate related. There needs to be some reason for us to care about what relay we go to. Now, since we've cut it down to 3 relays, a low, mid, and high level relay, we can actually afford to go in there and go, okay, we'll have great stuff for new players in the Mercury relay, we'll have great stuff for mid-level stuff at the Saturn one, and the Pluto relay is going to have all the endgame content. That would work. We could actually, like, have the Void Trader always show up in Pluto and Saturn or something like that. I don't know. Probably a dumb idea there, but you get what I mean, though. You got to give us some motivation to want to go and do that. So that's one thing we could do. The other would be to just get a unique tile set for each one, make them visually different, because that would, it's not as big a thing as it sounds, but it would make people care, because suddenly you're going to a different location. You're not just going to relay number 3 or whatever, you know? Give it some reason to exist. So that was one of the big failings I found in the event. The next one I found is I think it's more of a failing of Archwing as a whole, but the way that they handled the scoring and the damage output and all that, there were some setups that just weren't really valued that much. And like, for example, Elytrian was basically the win button. Elytrian with a Velocitus was, you bring that, you win the game. Now, people who had like the Decurion and stuff like that, you can't crit the core. That was the problem I had, because I was actually using the dual Decurion. I'm using it in this video here if you haven't noticed yet. You couldn't crit the core, which kind of took a bit of a dump on any crit-based weapons that we have, basically the Decurion. This is a bit of a minor complaint, but they really should have made it so the core can be critted. That way you can do damage to it. But the weapon we started with, the Imperator, was pretty good at damaging it. It wasn't the best in the world, but it worked. So I guess I can let that one slide a little bit. So, one other problem I had before was, like I said, people weren't ready for it. So when we were dropping in a lot of Pluto relays and stuff like that, high-level relays, Eris, Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, all those areas, I don't know which ones of those had them aside from Eris and Pluto, but people weren't really prepared for that. So, but again, I blame that one on the fact that we weren't really aware we were going to have to level all of our Archwing stuff up way high to do that. I had boosters going, so I was able to get my Archwing stuff up where I needed to be fairly quickly, but I don't think, if you didn't have boosters running, I think you'd be having a lot of trouble with that, or if you're not running with a Catalyst in your gear, which a lot of players didn't put them in Archwings. I don't care about it. It was a bit difficult for them. Not to mention, if you got targeted by the Fomorian's laser, you were kind of screwed if you didn't get behind something. It would blast everything in a straight line. I actually had one game I played, one guy got downed by the beam. I went out to save him within Penumbra, which I thought would protect me. By the way, it doesn't protect you. Took me out and then took out the guy behind me in one single beam and basically wiped the whole party out. So that's something to be careful of, although they do give you a bit of warning about that beam. So yeah, that's those are the main failings I found with the event. So the only other things I can think of with this event that kind of went awry a little bit, actually, yeah, I had one. I forgot what it was. It's probably not important then. So I've been going on a while here. Overall, my feelings on the event as the whole thing, I think the event was interesting. It's definitely a refreshing change in game type if we didn't have to do it 1,000 times. Oh, that's what I was going to talk about. There was no reward per run. That was what I was going to mention. This is a big one in my opinion. God, I can't believe I forgot that. This was mentioned a lot on the forums. One of the things that kept people from rerunning each run was that we only got paid once. We got our 50k, 75k, 100k for doing 1,000,000 damage, and then that was it. That was all you got. We didn't get any notable reward outside of that per run, which unfortunately discouraged players from sticking around and really defending the rails, or really defending the relays. So that, in my opinion, was a bit of an issue. I mean, that's obviously, if there was a reward, that would be fixed. It's something to keep note of for the next time they do an event. So, okay. Now back to my overall thoughts on it. I think the event was interesting. I'm hoping this is a teaser for a new kind of sabotage game type for the Grineer, because we do desperately need to get more. We desperately need to get more game types for Archwing. Because right now you have Exterminate, Interception, and Corpus Sabotage, which, while they're interesting, that's all we've got. There's no real reason to go nuts grinding Archwing stuff when there's really not much to do in it. So I'm hoping to see us getting either either Sabotage for the Grineer as this game mode right here, or getting something similar to this that they're experimenting with. So that'd be quite nice. The overall feel of the event, it was interesting. I think they paced it fairly well, although the timing I think was pretty bad. As far as the pacing goes, we had like a day and a half for each Fomorian, which was, I think, more than enough time. I would have liked to see more Fomorians go up. We had 20 Fomorians total, and it took 15 to get the Imperator Vandal, which is all fine and dandy, except it's the Christmas week. Or the week of Christmas was in there, along with New Year's. A lot of people are not home for that week. They're with family, or they're on vacation. So it's really difficult to play Warframe when you're not at your computer. So there were a good amount of players that weren't around for that. which is a bit of a damn shame, but I think that could have been mitigated if they did either did more Fomorians, extended the event an extra week, which would work, or if they had treated the rewards like they did with some previous events where it's about score attack and not about just collective gameplay. Because I'm finding it a little odd that they went back to the you have to fight X amount of this to win this event, and you know, having to take a long time to do it. That's something that I thought they had kind of abandoned as an event concept. I mean, it did make the event last, but one of the big things, I don't know, if you've been around since the early open beta, closed beta days, all the events they had early on were very grindy. It took a long time to do. They were meant to last a full weekend and whatnot, and players weren't really too big on that. They hated it. So eventually they shifted over to events where it's more of a score attack, where you could complete the event in 3 or 4 runs. That was kind of the intention. If you're really crazy about it, you can complete it in just a couple runs. Whereas if you were, wanted to pace yourself, you could spend the whole weekend on it. But all that mattered was your best score for the event and not the collective score. Or if it was a collective score, it was a sane amount, like killing 200 of a certain enemy type. Which we've seen that a bit with the tactical alerts. So that's, I found it kind of strange that we went back to the old scoring method for it. I'm hoping this was just kind of a one-off thing and not a change back to that system, because that was not really fun to do. It took way too much time. Like, you would have to spend like 6 hours on an event, and all you felt like you were doing was grinding. So I'm hoping this was just kind of a fluke. It was like that, or they were trying to make it last and kind of backfired a little bit. But let's keep it score attack, because that was probably the best way to handle it. So overall, my overall feeling on it, the event was alright. It exposed a few things with Archwing that needed work and showed a few things that actually worked pretty well. Hoping to see that as a game type eventually. And I didn't hate it. I didn't overly enjoy it, but it was alright. I'd do it again if they did another event of it. I just wouldn't be jumping for joy over it. So, now you know my thoughts, how I feel on the event. I'm probably going to be doing a video log sometime later this week or tonight, depending if I have the time, on Archwing as a whole, because now that I've gotten way more experience with it, I do have some things I want to say about it. So, this is Mitch with the Department of Bad Ideas, signing off.